Good afternoon on YouTube and Facebook and LinkedIn, TikTok. How you doing? I'm Brian Manning, and I am a political asylum lawyer. My law firm helps people all over the country to secure their future in America through asylum. We're based in Texas. We're based in Houston, but we have clients from coast to coast. Lots of clients in Texas, of course, but also lots in California, Florida, New York, around Chicago. So we help people all over the country to get certainty about their future in the United States. And we do that through the asylum process. I used to be an asylum officer with the government, and I bring those insights, those perspectives now to bear to help my clients present the strongest case possible for asylum, to help them win their asylum case. So start leaving your questions. This is the Asylum Answer Show, and the purpose of this is for me to answer your questions about asylum. So let me know what questions you have, all right? I'm going to say a couple words before I jump into your questions about an important topic, but go ahead. First of all, say hello. Leave a question, but also say hello. Let me know where you're watching from, okay? I'd love to hear where you're joining us today from on the Asylum Answers Show. And hey, good to see you. Glad you're here. Before I get to those questions, which I see there's already a bunch. That was quick. That was real quick. I'm going to say a couple words about something important. So when an asylum officer or judge thinks that an asylum applicant is lying, or maybe they don't really think they're lying, but they just want to deny them, and they basically need an excuse to do that, then they often turn to this not credible finding. They say, oh, the person's not credible. What does that mean? It means we can't believe you. We don't believe the things that you're saying because you're not a credible, believable person. And to do that, they have to justify it. They can't just say, oh, they seem to be not credible. They have to actually point to, supposedly at least, some kind of concrete things. And there's really three different things that can happen, three different ways that a judge or officer can determine that you're not credible and therefore deny you asylum. Okay. So what are they? There's three things. They're inconsistencies, lack of detail, and plausibility. Okay. The first thing, inconsistencies, is very, very, very common. As the name implies, it's when you say something that doesn't line up with something else that you've said, or something that's like in your document, something you've said in your written materials, like your declaration or your application form itself, or other application documents in your case. Okay. So for example, if you say, oh, you're describing an incident where you were attacked, and you say, okay, 4 guys attacked me. You say that at your asylum interview, that there was 4 of them. But in your declaration, your written personal statement, your history that you submitted with your asylum application, you said that it was 3 guys, 3 people who attacked you. Well, one time you said 4, earlier you said 3. Those things don't line up. They're contradictory. They don't match. That would be an inconsistency. And when that happens a few times, if you have a few inconsistencies in your case, they can say, oh, there's just too many inconsistencies here. Therefore, you're not credible. Therefore, you're denied because we don't believe you. Okay. So that's inconsistencies. And it happens all the time, even to people who are telling the truth. Okay. Because it's really, really, really easy to mix up a couple of details, especially when we're talking about traumatic events, usually that might have happened a long time ago. And it's easy to mix some of this stuff up. Okay. Especially in the stressful environment of an asylum interview or an immigration court hearing. It's stressful. You've got an officer or a judge probably acting hostile towards you. It's stressful. It's hard, and it's easy to slip up and make mistakes. You can help avoid this by preparing properly, which we take great pains to ensure that our clients are prepared to minimize those chances that they're going to have these kinds of errors. But inconsistencies is the first thing. Okay. And so the second thing is lack of detail. All right. So lack of detail. This means you are describing something and the judge says, give me some more details. Tell me more about that. And you can't. Like you're just like, I don't know. You're sort of vague. Okay. Like if you're describing an incident of harm and you've been attacked, and the judge says, okay, well, those 4 guys that you said attacked you, what were they wearing? And you're just like, oh, I don't know. I don't remember. And the judge says, okay, well, how many times did they hit you? I don't remember. What kind of weapons did they use? I don't know. Maybe a baseball bat? Maybe, I don't know. What did they say? I don't really remember. basically, if you just can't give details, a sufficient amount of detail about an incident or anything that you're saying happened, then that can be a problem. The judge can say, or the officer can say, "Oh, you should have provided more details. Your lack of detail makes me think that you're not credible." The idea here is, well, if someone really went through what you're saying you went through, you should be able to remember these kinds of things. And it's an unrealistic expectation, all right, that people remember all these little details. Again, especially when we're talking about often very difficult traumatic experiences that might have happened a long time ago. Nevertheless, this is something that asylum officers and judges often penalize you for, not being able to produce enough detail about the things that you are saying occurred. Okay. And then, so that's that. So far we've talked about inconsistencies and lack of detail. And the third thing that can be used against you to have the judge or officer decide that you're not credible and therefore deny you is called plausibility. The idea here is, if you're saying something that is just not plausible, then you're not credible. You're not a credible person. What does plausible mean? Plausible, basically, at least the way that it's used in the asylum context, means possible. Is something possible? Like, if you say something happened that is literally impossible, then that statement would not be plausible. It's not that it's inconsistent with something else. It's not that you're not providing enough detail. It's just that it can't happen. Like, if you say, I got attacked in, or I was in, let's think of a city. I was in Cape Town in the morning, and this incident happened to me there. The attackers came and tried to get me, and so I ran and I got on a bus and I got to Johannesburg, and they found me there, and they tried to get me again. And then the asylum officer says, "Oh, you took a bus from Cape Town to Johannesburg?" And you're like, "Yes." And the judge says, "Okay, how long did that take?" And to get there, to from Cape Town to Joburg, and you say, "Oh, it was about 25 minutes." Well, that's implausible. It takes way longer than that to go on a bus from Cape Town to Johannesburg. It's impossible. It's something that's impossible. Or if you said, aliens came out of the sky and they told me that, that I was going to be persecuted, like, that's just not possible. So you're not plausible. If you say things that are not plausible or that are implausible, then you can be found not credible. And when there's enough that a judge or officer can point to say, "Look, there was a couple inconsistencies in your case, and you couldn't provide enough detail, lack of detail about that one incident we talked about," then they can say you're not credible, and that's a reason they use to deny you. And often, I honestly do believe that it is a purposeful thing that a judge or an asylum officer does when they want to have an excuse to deny you, but they just don't really have a good reason. Because here's the thing: if you say things at your interview that, and you provide evidence that suggests that you should get asylum, like if you talk about being brutally attacked, tortured, and the torturers say, "We're doing this to you because you're a scum who supports the political opposition, you don't back the right party," it's obviously persecution on account of a protected ground. And so it may look very clear that the person deserves asylum. Well, the officer or judge can't just say, "I don't like this person, I'm not going to give him asylum." In other words, if the facts show that you should get asylum, then the judge or the officer can't just say no, unless they have some semi-legitimate excuse. And the excuse they often turn to is this credibility thing. That's like their go-to excuse to deny someone. Okay. And sometimes they play word games with you, and they try to trap you. They set up clever little tricks and traps to make you say something that at least seems like it's inconsistent with something you said earlier or something in your documents. And so they're trying to get you to mess up so that you'll make mistakes, so they'll have an excuse to say, "Oh, look, you made these mistakes. These things happened. You're not credible, denied." Okay. Now, you can prepare in a way that minimizes that risk, that makes it less likely that you're going to have these kinds of errors and give them a chance to deny you on credibility grounds. Okay. With our clients, we do intensive preparation. Well, first of all, it all starts with setting the stage very carefully with a written filing that we're going to make with the asylum office or the immigration judge that explains the whole case on paper. It is a roadmap, okay, for how the decision maker is going to get to the answer yes in your case, in the easiest way possible. Okay. We want you to walk into that office or that courtroom with the decision maker already thinking, you know what? Based on the documents in this case, I already see why the person qualifies for asylum. Okay. That's what we want. That's the first part. Now, the second part is the preparation for the hearing or the interview. And this is really important. If you do this well, you can minimize your chances for errors. Okay. So that they won't be able to even semi plausibly point to this credibility thing to deny you. So with our clients, before an asylum interview, we do a full scale mock interview where you're going to experience everything that you'll experience on the day of the real interview. Now, why is this important? In fact, I would say that it's so important that I think a lot of our clients would tell you that this mock interview and then the follow-up debrief session that we do with people is like the most important thing that we do in the whole representation. It's the most powerful thing in helping them win their case. So the full-scale mock interview, everything you're going to experience in the day of the real interview. That way, you go into the real interview knowing what kind of questions to expect. You know what it feels like to be in this position. You know what the different procedures are for the day. All of this is going to help you to do a better job, okay? To feel confident and comfortable and ready to do a good job. And I just saw Badru is on here. Where did you go? Badru is asking a question, which I'll try to answer later. Badru, would you agree with that the mock interview is extremely important and was super helpful in your case? Badru, I think it's okay to say this because Badru was talking about this on the show, on the Asylum Answer show a few days ago. Badru got his asylum approval a couple days ago, or I think it was on Monday, a few days ago. So he is a success story that we were able to help secure his future in America through asylum. And we're really proud of that and honored to have the chance to work with him. Yeah, you can prepare. You can do a lot to go into your interview confident and prepared and ready to do a good job. All right. So you got to prepare. You got to prepare though. Okay. And if you have a lawyer, your lawyer should be helping you with that. I got to say, I think that most of them don't do a very good job of that. When I was an asylum officer with the government, I was actually very surprised to see that the lawyers pretty much did nothing. Most of the time, they did nothing other than maybe help the client fill out the application form a little bit, but not much more than that. It was actually really disappointing to see how little immigration lawyers did. That's not enough. That's not sufficient. There's a lot that can and should be done, right, to put you in the best position possible to win your asylum case. If you want to talk about that with us, about how we might be able to help you increase your chances for success in your asylum case, call us on YouTube and Facebook and LinkedIn. The number is right above my head. Okay. And on TikTok, go to my profile. Just click on my name, go to my profile, and you'll see the phone number there. Or there's a link you can use in my profile to schedule your appointment directly. It's called an asylum strategy session, where you'll talk with one of our asylum lawyers about your situation. We'll analyze it and tell you what we think, whether we think we can help you. And if so, we'll tell you exactly what we're going to do to try to help you. Okay. So call us right now. Pick up the phone right now and give us a call so we can get that asylum strategy session scheduled with you. It doesn't matter where you are. We help people all over the country. It doesn't matter whether your case is with USCIS or in an immigration court. We help people in both places. And it doesn't matter whether you've already applied and now you want to strengthen your case and get ready for your interview or hearing, or whether you still need to apply. We help people at all phases. Okay. Raza Khan asks on that's what I wanted to say. Let's turn to the questions on YouTube. By the way, as we do that on TikTok, go to my YouTube channel and subscribe. Okay. It's called Political Asylum Lawyers. Go to YouTube and search for Political Asylum Lawyers. That's where I've got detailed videos with lots of tips. I've got some like long, full length, in-depth trainings that are going to help you increase your chances for success in your asylum case, I believe. So go to the Political Asylum Lawyers YouTube channel and subscribe over there. Okay. All right. On YouTube, on the Political Asylum Lawyers channel, Raza says, can a pending asylee get approved for EB3 sponsorship? So pending asylum case, and now you want to try and get EB3 status. It's a little bit tricky. I don't do those kinds of cases. And what I will tell you is I'm not the person to ask. I recommend that you talk to an immigration lawyer who focuses on like business and investment related, employment related immigration. Okay. So I do asylum. That's what we do. That's what I love. It's what I'm passionate about. It's what I have pretty unique experience in from having been on the other side of the desk. Worked for 11 years for the government's two main agencies for asylum and refugee affairs. And that's what I know, and that's what I love, and that's what we focus on. Okay. Immigration law is complex. And if you guys are going out and talking to lawyers who do immigration and divorce and criminal law, that's a bad, bad, bad sign. You want your immigration lawyer at a minimum to focus only on immigration. It's better still if they focus on one sort of aspect, one niche within immigration, because immigration is complicated and it's really hard to stay on top of different areas of immigration. So like I'll never take a case, I don't think, that is business, employment, investment related immigration. It's just not what I do and know. And if I took a lot of time out to try to learn that and master it and get really good at it, then I would be missing stuff in asylum, because asylum policies are changing all the time. And you got to study this stuff and you got to be working with it and engaging with it every single day to be great at it. Okay. So the point, Raza, is I don't know, or I'm not in a position to answer that. So I would say try to find someone who focuses on that kind of immigration. Okay. But I wish you all the best. What I can say for anyone out there who is trying to or considering trying to get another kind of status while your asylum case is pending, like maybe you have a spouse through whom you might be able to get a green card, or possibly an employer, or through investment, if that might be a possibility for you. Don't give up your asylum case. Do not withdraw your asylum claim thinking, "Oh, well, I've got this other thing that I'm going to get, and so I don't need the asylum case anymore. So I'm going to tell the asylum office that I'm just going to quit. I'm stopping pursuing my claim, withdraw my application." Don't do that. Don't do that, okay? Um, it's a mistake, all right? You never know. That other thing that you think you're going to get might not work out, okay? It happens all the time that it doesn't work out for whatever reason. And there's no problem with having your asylum case pending while you pursue these other things. Okay. These other kinds of long-term immigration status. And those things are not going to hurt your asylum case. All right. So don't withdraw your asylum application. Don't end your case. Don't close it out until you get that other status, until you get that green card in your hand. Okay. From the other thing. All right. Aaron says Mexico. Hey, Aaron, how are you? Just in case it's more convenient for you, Aaron, we have a Spanish language YouTube channel. It's called Asilo Aprobado. Okay, you can go subscribe to Asilo Aprobado, where I've got a lot of content in Spanish, and I do lives usually on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I do lives in Spanish on Asilo Aprobado on YouTube. Okay. All right. Okay, this is interesting. On Facebook, Sid says, "Hey, sir, I applied for asylum like 6 years ago, and they didn't call me yet for the interview. And last week, the Immigration Justice Court, they tried to contact me on the phone. What does that mean? I didn't talk to them yet." Um, I don't know. You need to contact them. You need to call them back, and don't stop call them every day until you talk to someone who can tell you what's going on. So you, but I'm not quite sure, Sid, what your status is, where your case is pending, because you say I haven't been called for the interview yet, but then you say the immigration court called you. Those sound like two different tracks, because an asylum interview is what someone has with USCIS when their case is with USCIS and not with the immigration court. If it's with immigration court, we don't call it an interview; we call it a hearing. So I don't know if your case is pending with USCIS or is with the immigration court, or maybe you applied with USCIS and that's where you expected to go have your interview, but you're getting this call now that says, "Hey," well, you're getting a call that says something. We don't know what they're saying yet, right? But it could be the case that you were sent to immigration court. For example, if you applied with USCIS and they sent you an interview notice and you didn't go to your interview, and they sent you a follow up to try to schedule again and you didn't respond, they can deny your case at the asylum office and send it to immigration court, and where you are in deportation proceedings. So maybe that's why what happened. I don't know. But the point is, there's no way to answer your question. There's no way to know what they want, why they called you. So you do need to call them back. Okay. Also, you need to check if you know what immigration court it was, Actually, it doesn't matter what court it was. You need to call the hotline for the immigration court system in general and use your A number to see if you have a case pending there. Like you can give them your A number. You can also do it online if you Google EOIR case status. Again, that's EOIR case status. Excuse me. On that page, you can use your A number to see if you have a case pending in immigration court. If you don't, then it'll just say no case found for this number. But if you do, it'll show like your name and your A number, and it'll show your next hearing. Okay. So you should check that to see if you have a case and if you have a hearing. Okay. All right. Let's see. K Kacha on YouTube says, "Hey Brian, thanks for your video. You're welcome. What do you think? Is it safe to apply for affirmative asylum before 6 months of your legal stay extended? My lawyer said I have to apply after 5 months since arrival. No, your lawyer, unfortunately, your lawyer doesn't know what they're talking about with regard on this question. Maybe they're a great lawyer. Maybe they focus on something else, like I was talking about earlier. But this is not the right. This their answer. What they told you about this for asylum is wrong. No, you don't need to wait. You don't need to wait at all. You can apply for asylum the day after you get in the United States, and it will not hurt your case. Okay. There's no benefit to waiting. There's absolutely no benefit to waiting to apply for asylum. In fact, if anything, I think it looks worse for you to wait longer. Okay. Sometimes when people apply for asylum right at the end of their one year period in the United States, sometimes asylum officers think, oh, looks like this person just didn't have anything else to do or any other ways to stay here. And so, they heard you had to apply for asylum during your first year. And so at the last minute, they just, filed this just to try to have something pending and get lucky maybe. If you apply right after you get here, soon after you get to the United States, I think it tends to look more like you're serious. Like you clearly had a reason for coming to the United States. It was to flee persecution and seek asylum, and you took it seriously and you did it soon. I think it actually looks a little bit better to apply sooner rather than later. There's absolutely no downside to applying sooner. There's really only upside because of what I just said, but also for getting a work permit. Okay. You are eligible to apply for your work permit 150 days after the government has accepted your asylum application, meaning after you've sent it in and they've said, okay, they sent you the receipt notice that says, we received your application and it's pending as of X date. 150 days after that X date is when you're eligible to apply for your work permit. So if you wait, Kacha, if you wait for 6 months, that's 6 months that like you're 6 months longer that you will be waiting to get a work permit than if you had applied for asylum earlier, because you're just pushing it back. So there's, the sooner you apply for asylum, the sooner you can get your work permit is the bottom line. But strategically, in terms of your asylum case, there's no benefit to waiting. Okay. There's really only downside. Okay. All right. So Alex Martinuk, привет, says on LinkedIn, I think. Yeah. How much does it to represent someone in removal proceedings? Already submitted I-589, just need to appear at the individual hearing. It depends. Thank you for providing some detail. It depends. You'd have to call us, okay? So for what Alex says, $1,000 or $2,000? No, it's way more than that. It's way more than that to put together a solid case for you, because there's a lot that we need to do to get you prepared and for us to put the case together on paper. So no, it's way more than that. But it all starts with an asylum strategy session. So we need to hear about someone's case. And first of all, we have to decide whether we think that you have at least some chance of winning. Because if we ask you questions and learn about your case and we think, you know what, this person has no chance of winning or virtually no chance of winning, we won't represent you. Okay. Because I just don't feel comfortable taking thousands of dollars from someone if I think that we can't really do anything at all to help them. Okay. Now, if we think that you have at least some chance of winning, then I will think that we can help you to increase your chances. Okay. And we'll be happy to represent you. But if we analyze your case and it's like, they have like no chance of winning, we won't represent you. Okay. So we have to make that determination first as to whether we're willing to take your case. And of course, you'll want to talk to us, and hear more from us so that you can decide whether you want us to take your case, to be the lawyers to help you. So, but that all starts in an asylum strategy session. Okay. And on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, the number is right above my head. Okay. So call us now to schedule that asylum strategy session. All right. And then on TikTok, go over to my profile and find the phone number there. There's a link you can click on to schedule directly online if you don't want to call. All right. All right. Aaron Chavez. I think I might have missed the first part of your comment. Did you leave it up above somewhere? Let's see. Aaron says, I had residency, but I let it expire. Have been here in Mexico since '09 approximately. Are you asking, Aaron, if you can apply for asylum in the United States after having had permanent residence in Mexico? If that's the question, then the answer is you'll probably will not win asylum because of the firm resettlement bar. When someone leaves their own country that they're fleeing persecution in, they leave that country. If they go to another country before coming to the United States where they have permanent residence or an offer to get it, then they won't get asylum in the United States. There's a couple of exceptions to that rule, but that's the general rule, and it's hard to overcome that. Okay. And it doesn't matter that it expired. Okay. The only really relevant question is, were you physically present in another country after you last left your own country? Were you physically present in another country in which you had permanent residence? If the answer to that question is yes, which it sounds like it is in your case, Aaron, then you will probably not get asylum in the United States because of the firm resettlement bar to asylum. So yeah, if you were to go back to your home country for a while, or even very shortly, for a short amount of time, that changes things. If you were to go back to your country and then come to the United States without physically being on the way another country where you have permanent residence, then this is the fact that you previously were in another country where you had permanent residence would not keep you from getting asylum. So basically, going after being where you are firmly resettled, in this case Mexico, going back to your home country will cure that and help you get around the firm resettlement bar. Okay. But, if you're truly in danger there, then it might not be a good idea to go back to your own country. And also, going back to your own country does also make it complicates winning asylum, because the asylum officer is going to say, wait, if you're so scared to go back to wherever you're from, Aaron, then why did you go back there? If you're telling me that these guys are looking for you and they're going to kill you, then why'd you go back there? You must not really be afraid, or you must not be telling the truth. Okay. All right. My man Agatarog has been with us for the last few lives in a row. Good to see you, Agatarog. Why haven't you scheduled a consultation with us yet, man? Give us a call. Number's right up there. You've been chatting with us here on these live shows, the Asylum Answer Show, for a while now. Let's see what we can do. Let's see if we can help you, man. Give us a call. We've got Pella says, hello, Brian. Good to see you here, Pella. So Bright Life Ethiopia says, dear, I know you're in the USA, but could you give us some tips about Canada asylum process too? No, not really. I mean, no, I don't, I've never studied Canadian law. I'm not a Canadian. I'm not licensed to practice Canadian law. I don't know anything about it. I can tell you, however, that it's pretty similar. Most of the ideas are the same, because the U.S. asylum laws are sort of built around, at least in significant part, international agreements, conventions that countries all agreed to, mainly after World War II, especially with something called the Refugee Convention. The United Nations Refugee Convention is like kind of the main building block of U.S. asylum law. And so it's really a lot of it is pretty much the same or very similar in many countries, including Canada. So the stuff that I'm telling you here, a lot of it's going to be helpful, especially if you, Bright Life Ethiopia, if you on my YouTube channel, which is where you're watching, that's great, called Political Asylum Lawyers. if you watch the full length trainings there about like how to answer questions at an asylum interview and things like that, those will probably be very helpful to you no matter where you're seeking asylum, because a lot of it will be transferable to other countries. Okay. But in terms of details, specifics about Canada, nope. Sorry, I don't know. What is the processing time, Pella asks, for the I-730, I-730? If you don't know, the I-730 is the form that you submit. It's an application to bring family members to the United States once you have won asylum. So if you win asylum, you are eligible to petition to bring to the United States your spouse, as well as any children who were under 21 at the time that you applied for asylum and who remain single, meaning not married. You can bring them here on the basis of your asylee status. And the form that you use to ask for this is called I-730. So Pella is asking on YouTube, on the Political Asylum Lawyers YouTube channel, how long does it take? What's the processing time? I haven't checked in a couple of weeks, I don't think, Pella, but last time I looked, I think it was like 18 months. So it's a long time. It's a long time. However, in some cases, you can expedite this, just like you can. Nice. Just like you can expedite, in some cases, your asylum interview based on emergency circumstances. In fact, recently, we had success with this, both for getting the asylum interview expedited and for getting the I-730 process expedited for one of our clients whose family was abroad and they were at risk, like they were in danger. We put together evidence about this, declarations about this, and made the argument that it should be expedited, and it was. Even expedited, though, it still took a few months. The I-730 process still took like 5 or 6 months total to get them here after we started it, even though it was expedited. So it's going to take a while. Okay. Brian, have we wait a video about how to build country conditions report with your tips? I do have a video about that. Pretty sure it's on my English language YouTube channel. Let's see. I'm going to have to find it for you. Send me a direct message, okay, and I'll find it for you, and I'll link you to it. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I do. I have one that I made for people who don't have a lawyer about that includes this about how to build the packet that you can send in to the asylum officer or immigration judge, where you're explaining your case on paper, and part of that is the country conditions information or country of origin information that can be helpful, okay, in your case. All right. Nice. Oh, thanks for letting me know about that. Okay. You're welcome. Okay. So Badru said yes. He's talking about the mock interview that my law firm did with him. And again, he was granted asylum just a few days ago. Out in California. Wait, Badru, I forgot. Were you in California? Yeah. Los Angeles, right? Yeah. Badru says, yes, the mock interview was very useful to me, and it drew the actual picture of what happens in the actual interview. Attorney Lori did a great job on that part. Yeah, that was my colleague Lori, who is an excellent asylum lawyer, who did the mock interview with Badru. And yeah, as Badru says here, it gives you a picture of what the real interview is going to be like. And, I find that a lot of anxiety, stress, nervousness, a lot of it can come from the unknown, fear of the unknown, and just not knowing what you're getting into. And so when we do this practice interview, you feel like you've been through it before. You feel like I've been there, I've done that, I know what to expect. And so when you get to the real interview, it feels like you've been there. It's like you've already done it. You don't have this anxiety about like what's going to happen, what's it going to be like, because you've done it. And I used to be an asylum officer, right? I've been to a lot of asylum interviews. I've been trained on how to do the asylum interview, and I've done the asylum interview as an officer. And so that's what I've trained my team on. My associate attorneys who do mock interviews now, I've trained them, and they make it as realistic as possible. Okay. So you will go into the real interview feeling like, you've been there and knowing what you're getting into and ready to do a good job. Okay. All right. Man, tough. I'm sorry to hear this. Aaron says the cartel has threatened me. They came by my place and broke 2 of my cameras, then called and threatened me. That's tough. I'm sorry to hear that. I'm really sorry to hear that. I hope you can stay safe. Okay. All right. Um, BS channel. That's a fun YouTube channel name. On YouTube says, if you're called for an AOS interview based on asylum, should you bring an attorney? AOS stands for adjustment of status. What is that? Adjustment of status is the process by which you get a green card, by which you become a permanent resident. So after you win asylum, um, after you've been in the United States for 1 year, after having won asylum, you can get a green card, permanent residence, based on your asylee status. And often there is an interview for this where you have to go do an interview at a USCIS field office. It's actually a different office than where you had your asylum interview, or if you had your your asylum approved in immigration court. This next step of getting a green card is not with the court, but rather through USCIS. And so you apply using the green card application form, which is called Form I-485. You send that to USCIS. You have to provide documents. You have to do a medical exam, and often they do an interview. And so what BS Channel is asking about here is, should you take a lawyer with you to that interview? Yes. So I went to one of these on Monday of this week in Houston, and for an asylee, someone who had won asylum, and then they won asylum several years ago. They applied for the green card and it was denied. Okay. So it happens. It happens a lot, actually. It was denied. And then after it was denied, they hired us and said, we don't, this got denied last time. Can you help us get it? Apply again. So we helped them apply again. And I went to this woman's interview on Monday in Houston, and it seemed to go well. But I got to tell you, we did a lot of work to prepare. We did a lot of work in building the case on paper, and then in thinking and strategizing about how to approach it, both on paper and at the interview and in preparation. And I think it was approved. She told us yesterday that her My USCIS case status has changed to card is being produced, which is usually means like the green card itself is being created. So we haven't gotten the approval letter yet, but I think it was successful. But it was a little bit tricky. And here's the thing that you need to know about this. Sometimes these immigration officers at the field office who are handling your adjustment of status application, they like to play detective, and they like to look back through your whole immigration history. Everything from when you applied for your visa, like the visa application form and the notes that the visa officer took during your interview, which I used to be, by the way. Before I was an asylum officer, I was a diplomat, and as part of that, I did visa interviews, which is fun. But this officer at your adjustment of status interview may look back through all your records, including your asylum office records and the notes that the asylum officer took about what you said, and look at all your documents. And they will also look, at your green card application materials. And if they see something that doesn't line up, that looks to be inconsistent, like we talked about earlier, well, they can ask you about those things. And if they come to think that maybe you lied as part of your asylum application process, they'll try to take away your asylee status. Not only will they deny your green card application, they'll send your case file back to the asylum office and say, here's the reasons that we think this person might have lied in getting their asylum, or otherwise why we think that they should not have asylum. And the asylum office then starts what's called a revocation process, where they are going to try to take away your asylee status. And they do that they have you come in for another interview at the asylum office. And I got to tell you, once they get to that step, it's very hard to change their minds. Once they've decided, oh, we think that we're going to take it away from you and we're going to interview you about it, it's really hard to win. It's hard to overcome this. I've represented people at it, and it's tough at this interview at the asylum office. And so usually they take it away. Usually they strip you of your asylum status and they put you in deportation proceedings, and you might get deported. So, especially let me tell you, BS Channel, that especially with asylum, there's some tricky elements, especially concerning, with an asylee who goes on to apply for the green card. There's some tricky elements, especially related to, for example, whether you have ever lied because or submitted something to an immigration officer that was not true, because often Asylees do that. They have to lie to get their U.S. visa to get to the United States. And if you answer the question on your green card application and say, nope, I've never lied, um, that can be a problem at your green card interview, because they might bring up this issue of, oh well, it looks like you told the visa officer that you were coming for tourism. However, you applied for asylum a month after you got here, um, and you obviously didn't come just for tourism. So therefore, you lied. And today, or on your application form for green card, you said you've never lied. This is an inconsistency and a problem. All right, and they do this. By the way, I'm posting, I think today or Monday, a detailed video about this on YouTube. Go to the Political Asylum Lawyers channel and subscribe there. All right. About some tricks that asylum officers use to make a negative credibility finding. And this is one of them. They try and trap you with this question of like, oh, have you ever lied or misrepresented anything to a U.S. immigration officer before? And people forget, right? Like, or they're not thinking at the asylum interview or at the green card interview. They're not thinking back to 5, 8, 15 years ago about their visa interview and what they told the officer, or what they said on their form, or when they arrived at the airport in the U.S., if the Customs and Border Protection officer at the airport says, what's the purpose of your visit? And you say, studies, or tourism, or shopping, or visiting family. That can be another thing that's considered a lie, and it can hurt you if you later say, no, I've never lied. Okay, so the point is, there's little things like that you probably wouldn't expect, right? They could be a problem, but they can, including at the stage where you are. Congratulations, by the way, on winning asylum. At the stage where you are of going to seek your green card and wondering whether you need a lawyer at your interview. So that was a very long way of saying, yes, you should take a lawyer to your interview. You need to get a lawyer well before it and prepare for it. And your lawyer needs to analyze your whole case file. You need to do a Freedom of Information Act request and get a copy of your whole case file, and your lawyer needs to analyze it carefully and help prepare you before your adjustment of status interview. All right. That is that. Let's go over to TikTok. If I apply for asylum, can my wife get a work permit? Yes, if your wife is included as a dependent in your case. Good question. Thank you for asking it. So when someone applies for asylum, if you're the person who is like putting your name at the top and you're signing it as the asylum applicant, you're what's called the principal applicant. And then you can have people included as a dependent in your case. I just posted a video on YouTube a couple of days ago about this, about which family members you can include in your asylum case as dependents. The short version of it is your spouse and any children who are under 21 and single at the time that you're applying for asylum. They can be dependents. And so you have to list in the asylum application form, if you're married or you have kids, you have to include their data in the form. But for each person, there's a section where it says, if this person's in the United States, do you want them to be included in your case? And there's a box that you check for yes or for no. If you check yes, that means that they're going to be a dependent in your case, which means that if you win asylum, they get asylum at the same time that you do. They become an asylee thanks to you winning your case. And so if you, the answer is, if you listed them on your application form and you checked yes to include them, then yes, they can get a work permit through you, through your case. All right. So when you've been waiting 150 days, once you reach 150 days after having applied, all of you who are included in your case can apply for the work permit. Okay. So that's good news, right? Also though, if you did not check the box to say yes originally when you applied, but now you want them to be a part of your case, like earlier you thought, no, they're not going to be part of my case. Or maybe they've come to the United States. Maybe they weren't in the United States previously, but not when you applied, but now they are. So they're eligible to be included in your case. Well, you can add them as a dependent in your claim. Or if you get married, even if you get married after you apply for asylum, as long as it's before you get a decision, you can add that person to your case as a dependent. It's slightly annoying and complicated, the process of doing that. But basically, you ask the asylum office, hey, look, I've got this qualifying relationship and I want to add this person to my case. Okay. And you have to give them some documents and a statement, and they'll add them. And once that person's added, they can get a work permit based on your case. Even if, and they, crucially, they don't have to wait 150 days from the time that they became a dependent in the case. All that matters is that you, as the principal applicant, applied at least 150 days ago. And so as soon as they're added to the case, as soon as the asylum office confirms, yes, they have been added to the case, or the immigration court confirms they're added to the case, then they can apply for the work permit if you've passed 150 days since you applied for asylum. Okay. So that's all good news, right? Nice. You are good, sir. Thank you. Professional experience, knowledgeable person. Thank you. From Witty Kong on TikTok. I got my EAD and social security number 6 months ago. Now what's next? How long is the wait? Says JDev 1405. I don't know. And there was a question about this, about wait times for interviews on YouTube as well. And of course, it's a popular question. Everyone wants to know how long you're going to have to wait for your interview. And the answer is, I don't know. I can't tell you with any certainty or real confidence. I can tell you, though, if you've been waiting more than 6 months for your interview, well, in your case, probably at least 11 months, right? If you already got your EAD, I am not optimistic that you will get your interview anytime soon. Okay. I think it's probably going to be years, because you've sort of fallen into the backlog due to a policy, or in line with a policy change that USCIS made in 2018 and has only been really following carefully or fully sporadically since then because of COVID, mainly because of COVID. They try to focus now on people who apply and try to schedule them for an interview right when they apply. Like a lot of people, for a while, a lot of people were getting their interviews within 2 or 3 months of applying, very fast. That got slowed down, well, by COVID, and then later it was back to very, very, very fast. But then it's been slowed the last almost year, probably, because the Asylum Office has had to focus on Afghans. As a rule, they had to prioritize the cases of people from Afghanistan who were brought to the United States when the Taliban took over again in August of 2021. And so that's pushed everyone back. And if you don't get your interview in the first few months, like I would say probably 6 months, I think you're probably not going to get it for a very, very long time. Okay. Now, when you can eventually sue. And in fact, Badru, who was on earlier and whose asylum case we helped him win this week, he sued the government. He got tired of waiting. He was waiting for several years. He got tired of waiting and he sued the government. And the government said, "Oh, you know what, Badru, we don't want to fight this case. Badru, if you promise that you're going to withdraw the case in federal court, we'll give you your interview." Okay. And he said, "Thank you." And he got his interview very soon and he won. All right. So if you have to wait if you are waiting years for your asylum interview with USCIS, you should consider suing the government. This is called a mandamus lawsuit, and we absolutely love doing it. It's fun, actually, making the government do what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to handle your case in a reasonable time, and waiting 3, 4, 5, 10 years is not reasonable. So any of you out there, if you've been waiting, I would say right now what we're telling people is 3 years or more from the time that you applied for asylum. If you're waiting to get your interview or to get a decision after your interview, but you applied 3 years ago or longer, then you're in a pretty good position to sue the government and force them to take action on your case. All right. And if you want to talk to us about that, give us a call to schedule an asylum strategy session. This number above my head on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn is what you can call to get started. Okay. On TikTok, go to my profile. All right. Get that number, call us. Let's connect. Let's talk about your situation. All right. So on Facebook, we have a question that says, any of your clients' asylum cases take more than 6 years? Any idea why USCIS takes so long for interview? Thanks. I know of lots of people whose cases have taken more than 6 years. My law firm's only been open for a little over 3 years. So I don't have any clients that we helped apply for asylum and we've been waiting 6 years. But people hire us after they've already applied and they decide, you know what, I want to strengthen my case and get the best help possible to prepare. They hire us after they've already applied sometimes. And some of them have been waiting, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And I encourage them to sue. It's 6 years. If you've been waiting, I assume you've been waiting 6 years, you are in a very good position to force the government to give you your interview by suing. You might be able to get it just by threatening to sue, by sending a letter that says, if you don't give me my interview in the next 30 days, I'm going to sue. Recently, we had success with this in the Miami asylum office for a client from Venezuela who'd been waiting about 5 years. And we sent this letter, and about a week and a half later, he had his interview. It was incredibly fast. But if that doesn't work, you can sue. And you, at 6 years, I have high confidence that you will win. You're in a good position to win. Okay. All right. On YouTube from Zach, we have this question that says, "Hi, Brian. Do I need documents like a prison paper or something? In Ethiopia situation, it was like mass arrest, and I didn't get any paper from prison. I haven't been in a court either." So basically, it sounds, Zach, I'm sorry to hear about that. That sounds tough. I'm sorry that that happened. Um, um, yeah. So here's what I think. No, you do not need papers. Okay. Understand, please, everyone, that evidence is overrated, especially at the asylum office. Okay. The officers often think that documents are probably fake anyway, and they don't give them that much weight. They don't care that much about them. And the guidance, the rules say that you don't actually have to have any documents. You can win asylum without any evidence whatsoever. You can win based just on your testimony, meaning what you say on the day of your interview and what you write. If you write a declaration, that too. As long as your testimony is detailed, consistent, and plausible, then you can win without evidence. Does it help to have evidence? Sure. Yes. I mean, we always, for our clients, after we've analyzed their case very thoroughly, we make a list of all the documents that we think they should try to get as evidence in support of their case. So yeah, if you can get it, sure. But in this case, like you're saying, you were arrested in a mass arrest and there's no documents, like they didn't produce any papers related to it. There's no court records because you never went to court. That's okay. Don't worry. Do not let that stop you from applying for asylum. Okay. Because, it's not that important. You can win without it. Okay. You may be able to get evidence. You may still be able to get evidence about this situation, just not official documents. But if there's witnesses, like people that that were arrested with you or in jail with you, you might be able to get them to write letters about what happened, and if they have personal knowledge about what happened to you, this can be helpful in your case. And but even without that, you can still win. So don't let it stop you from applying for asylum. In fact, thank you for asking this question, because this is an opportunity to address something really important, which is sometimes people don't apply at all because they're like, oh, you know what? I don't have a lot of evidence about what happened to me or the threats. Therefore, I'm not going to apply. Don't let that happen to you. Okay. Because you really don't have to have any certain amount of evidence to get asylum. Okay. All right. On YouTube, Kacho says, just FYI, all Russian speakers lawyers said that I have to apply at least 5 months, because in this case of denial, my case will be get a hearing in immigration court. I paid for 3 lawyers and still want to apply ASAP. Okay, so this is an interesting wrinkle. So what the person's saying is that strategically, they've been told by some lawyers to wait and apply close to like the 6-month mark, because if they get a negative decision from the asylum office, it will be after their tourist status has expired. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kucho, but I assume this is what you're talking about. And what happens next after you get a negative decision from the asylum office depends on what your immigration status is at the moment that they make that negative decision. If you still have legal status, like tourist status, then they just say, case denied, sorry, no asylum for you, but nothing else happens. You can stay here as long as that tourist status lasts. But if you don't have any status at that moment, when they make the negative decision in the asylum office, then you get put in deportation proceedings. They send your case to immigration court where the government is trying to deport you, which is bad. However, the upside is you get a second chance at asylum. You get to explain your case to the judge, and the judge might give you asylum. And so what this person is saying, it sounds like these lawyers you've talked to have said, oh, no, you want to get to go to immigration court because there you'll have another chance at winning asylum. That's debatable. Like, yes, you get another chance to win asylum, but you also might get a deportation order, as where you won't if you still have your legal status when you get a negative decision from the asylum office. So it's debatable whether it's a good thing to still have your tourist status at the time that you get a decision from USCIS or not. Okay, so that's debatable. Um, I'll tell you that. Well, yeah, that's all I'll say. I won't say. I don't want to. I don't want to disparage other lawyers anymore. So no, but I wouldn't wait. No, I wouldn't wait. It's you're even if you come on day one and apply for asylum. Like, are you going to get a decision within the next 6 months? Um, Maybe. Even if you get your interview very soon, 2 or 3 months, it often takes 2 or 3 months to get a decision. And then once you get when you get the first, you get first of all what's called a notice of intent to deny. After your interview, if you still have legal status and they say you're not qualified for asylum, they don't send a denial right away. First, they send you something called a notice of intent to deny, where they say we plan to deny you. We're probably going to deny you, and here's why. And they list their reasons, and they say you have 16 days to respond in writing to try to change our minds, to try to tell us why we are wrong. And if you do, we'll give you asylum. And so you have 16 days to respond, and then they have to make a decision after that, and that takes a while as well, maybe weeks, maybe months, or longer. And so what I'm saying is, it's going to take it takes a while to get that final negative decision, to get that denial. So yeah, like I don't know, being in deportation court and immigration court is usually not a good thing. So keep that in mind. By the way, if you're a Russian speaker, I suspect you might have a pretty good case. I'm not sure where you're from. I don't know if it's Russia or Ukraine or Belarus or anywhere in the Russian, wherever it may be in the Russian speaking world, but most people probably have a pretty decent case and have a decent chance, at least some chance of winning at USCIS. Okay. So that is that. Last thing, by the way, I don't know if you've seen my Russian language video. If you go to YouTube and look at, I think it's a short. Look at my shorts from I don't know, a couple months ago. If you scroll through, you'll see Ukrainian flag on the background, and I speak Russian in that one. I used to speak Russian, like not super fluently, but I studied Russian in university. It was my minor, and then I studied it in Russia in St. Petersburg 3 different times. So it's a beautiful language. I love the Russian language. Interesting question on YouTube. We've got from Mill Maps says, "Hey Brian, I hope you're well. I am doing well. It's a good day. Thank you. For asylum purposes, after the interview, to background checks take longer for former military in other countries." No, not necessarily. No, not usually. And in fact, usually the background checks are done before the interview and finished before the interview. They're always started before the interview. They're usually finished before the interview. But yeah, if something comes up such that the office or the people doing the background checks or the officer think that there's a problem, maybe like there's something in your past that might make you ineligible for asylum, then yes, it takes a long time for them to dig into it. But just the mere fact that someone was in the military won't necessarily make it take longer. If you were in the military during a certain period in which your country's military was committing grave human rights abuses, and your application materials or your history show that you were, stationed in the area where this was happening, that's a scenario where, yeah, it might take longer. Yeah. All right. But apart from circumstances like that, there's not really reason to believe that it's necessarily going to take much longer. Okay. Still waiting. Vlogger Mansing says, "Sir, waiting on decision from last month. It lasts more than 1 year from New Orleans office. Decision from last more than 1 year. Sorry, not last month, from last more than 1 year ago." So the question is, when did you apply? Did you apply like a year ago, a little over a year ago, or was it like 3 years ago? If it was 3 years or more, then you could sue. I would recommend that you sue to pressure them to give you your decision. Okay. Austin says, "Is it possible to win asylum case for reappeal?" What do you mean? I'm going to ask you, can you rephrase that? I'm not sure what you mean by that. Like if you get denied by USCIS and not put in deportation proceedings, are you asking whether you can apply again with USCIS? Is that what you mean? Maybe. If so, or in case that's what you mean, I'll address that question. It's possible. So a second ago, remember I said that if you have legal status at the moment that USCIS makes a negative decision, they deny your case. They don't put you in deportation proceedings. So can you apply? If that happens, can you apply again for asylum with USCIS? You can. You can. Yes. Chances for success are very low, because most asylum officers don't want to override their colleagues who just recently made a negative decision. But it's not impossible. You might get a more reasonable, sympathetic officer. You might hire a lawyer who helps you to do a better job explaining your case and preparing you for the interview. So it's not impossible. But if you meant something else, Austin, let me know. Okay. Millmaps asked Badru, how long did it take to get your decision? I'll answer for him. I don't think he'll mind. It was fast. It was like, or actually, I don't remember exactly. Was it a month, Badru? It wasn't like 3 or 6 months. It was shorter than that. So the question here is, how much would you charge to sue the government for the case pending 6 years? It kind of depends. There's a couple of things that we would need to talk about in an asylum strategy session. So call us on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. Call that number if you want to talk with us in an asylum strategy session. But it's around like $5,000 is what we charge for most cases where we're suing the government right now. But that's subject to change. It'll probably go up soon, actually. All right. Interesting question. Anu says, if I get my green card through something else, will my asylum application continue or is it automatically terminated? It will keep existing. However, next time that the asylum office goes to look at your file online, like your profile online, they will see that you've gotten that green card. And at that point, they will send you a letter that says, hey, we saw that you got your green card. We therefore assume that you no longer want to pursue your asylum case. And if you do not respond to us in writing in the next, I think they say 30 days, to say, hey, I want to keep my case going, then we're going to close out your case. It's not a denial. It's called like it's an administrative closure. Like it ends your case, but it's nothing negative for you. So that's what happens when they like if it comes time for you to be interviewed, if you're up in the line, it's your turn. When they're scheduling you is probably when they will see that you got your green card, and they'll send you that letter. And then if they don't hear from you, if you don't respond to them, then they'll close your case out. Okay. And it's okay. Once you get your green card, it's okay to withdraw your asylum case. You can reach out to them. You don't have to wait. If you just feel better about getting it off the books, getting it closed, you can reach out to them. You can write a letter and say, hey, I got my green card. I don't want to pursue asylum. I want to withdraw my application. Can you please close out my case and include a copy of your copy of your green card? And they will close it for you. Okay. All right. Nice. Okay, yeah. So Blogger Mansingh said 3 years ago. Yeah, at 3 years, you're in a decent position to pressure the government by way of a lawsuit. So you should consider that. All right. Okay. Well, we're up against time. I'm going to go and get the weekend started pretty soon here. It's Friday afternoon as we make this video. And I hope that all of you have a great weekend. I'm Brian Manning. Again, the number is up there on YouTube and Facebook and on TikTok. Go to my profile. Give me a call, all right? And set up an asylum strategy session with one of our political asylum lawyers so that we can help you secure your future in America through asylum, all right? As always, it's a pleasure and an honor to engage with you and to be at least a small part for most of you in your journey toward asylum, okay, and securing your future in America through asylum. So thank you. Have a good weekend, and I'm going to be live again in English on Monday, probably at 3 p.m. Central Time. So come back, ask more questions.